I get questions coming in from you guys every day asking me what type of kayak should I buy? What do you think about this kayak? What do you think about that kayak? And to be completely honest with you, I haven't even laid eyes on most of the kayaks you guys are thinking about buying. But there's definitely some wisdom to look out for so you don't end up dropping a bunch of cash on a piece of crap that you don't like in a month. So I'm gonna skip over begging you for the subs and likes. You know how YouTube works, and we're gonna jump into the countdown starting with number 4, believing bad logic. And here's what I mean. When I first made the transition from a bank fisherman to a kayak fisherman, I had this thought come to my mind. What if I start out with a really cheap kayak, and if I really like the sport, I'll buy a more expensive one later? And in my opinion, that's bad logic, because if you buy a cheap fishing kayak, I guarantee you, you're not going to like it, and fishing from it's gonna be a bear. And you'll end up begging someone on Facebook Marketplace to buy it, but they won't because they already watched this video and you'll be stuck with it. At the end of the day, they both might float, but there's a reason that one is more expensive than the other. And what will end up happening is that you actually be trading a lot for a little bit of saved dollars. I got 4 biggies for you here. Number 1 is maintenance cost. You will end up spending more on that deal you got because it wasn't quality. And you will continually be shelling over cash about whatever it is that goes wrong in that kayak because it wasn't designed to last that long. Number 2 is cheap materials. And what you thought was a little rub on that rock in the water is actually now a tear in your kayak because it was made with the cheapest materials possible, and that kayak is as thin as possible. Number 3 is poor design, which really means poor maneuverability. It's going to take you much more energy in order to get that fishing kayak where you want it to go. Why is my kayak tracking like a snake? And number 4 is comfort. If you haven't ever fished out of a cheap kayak, well, let me tell you something. It sucks. Your legs are gonna end up falling asleep, your back's gonna be in knots, and your butt's gonna be sore. And that may not have been a big deal for me 10, 20 years ago when I was a spring chicken, but now I'm a winter chicken. I don't know if that's even a thing, but I'm tired. Now, as you can see behind me, I have my Native Slayer Propel 10, which is my fishing kayak, and hanging up here, I have my Aruba 10 Sun Dolphin, which I honestly don't care a whole lot about, as you can tell from this video with my kids. I love being a girl dad. Are there any other girl dads out there? Let me know in the comments below. Or moving on. So back to my point, I'm gonna start out with something cheaper, and then if I like fishing from it, upgrade to something better. Sounds like a good idea, but actually putting yourself at a disadvantage because fishing from cheap kayaks sucks. There, I said it. Moving on to number 3, not trying before you buy. Now, I've touched on this in some of my other videos because the reality is it's very difficult to find a big box store that's gonna allow you to try that kayak before you buy. So this piece of advice is gonna be a little more difficult to follow. So if you put in the extra work, you're gonna be much more happier with your purchase. You're not gonna be able to try before you buy at your Walmart, your Costco, your Dick's Sporting Goods, your big box stores. There are some companies like REI that have a pretty liberal return policy. I think their return policy is, I don't like it, and they'll take it back. But you won't get your money back, but you will get a store credit, so keep that in mind. Which really only leaves you with one final option, which are going to be your local shops. But this might be a route you want to take because these local shops are going to be able to give you that one-on-one attention, be able to size you to that kayak, share the pros and cons of all the fishing kayaks, and most of the time be able to afford you some type of try before you buy option. Now, if you do ask your local shop and they say, hey, we don't have any type of try before you buy, my follow-up question would be, hey, do you have some type of demo days? And if you're lucky, there's one actually on the horizon, and you'd be able to try out a smorgasbord of kayaks and get the one that's perfect for you. Now, I was gonna touch on buying used, however, that's a whole nother video I'm creating, which is a complete buyer's guide to purchasing a used fishing kayaks. So if you want to see that, hit that sub and bell, and it'll be coming out in a few weeks. Moving on, mistake number 2, one size does not fit all. Now, the average size of a fishing kayak is around 10 feet long, but just like being sized for a bike, there's a lot of things to take consideration before purchasing a fishing kayak. Here's some things to consider. Number 1, weight capacity. There's a couple different ways to figure this out, but the way that I like is simply find the manufacturer's weight capacity. Once you find that number, now reduce it by by around 30%, and now add up your kayak, all the stuff you're gonna put on it, including yourself, and if you come in below that number, you're typically good to go. Now, if you think I don't know what I'm talking about, and you think I'm a complete idiot and don't follow this, what you'll end up getting yourself into is you're gonna have a harder time paddling that kayak. It's gonna have horrible maneuverability and stability, and like anything, if there's too much weight on something that floats, it's gonna be much easier to capsize. Most fishing kayaks are anywhere between 10 and 14 feet long. Man, 14 footers, that's super long kayak, probably super heavy, but they're also around 42 inches wide. My Native Slayer Propel 10 has a pontoon shaped hull, which I really appreciate, especially because I like to stand a lot, which brings me to stability. And your stability has a ton to do with how your hull is shaped. There's actually around 10 to 14 different types of hull shapes. Next, before you buy your kayak, be thinking about all of your storage needs. Is there a place for a behind the seat backpack? Is there a place for a kayak crate behind the seat? Is there room for an under the seat storage? Think through all these options before you buy it, or you might be sorry when you get home. Next, once you bought the thing, where are you actually going to store it? Outside is a bad idea. UV rays will destroy that kayak, fade the colors, and actually make the kayak more brittle because UVs break down the structure of the kayak over time. Highly recommend storing those indoors out of the sun, and as you can see here, I actually have a hoist. So if you're interested in how I did that, I actually have a video on it. I'll put it in the description below. Next is portability. You gonna have this fishing kayak on the lake all the time, or are you gonna be lifting it and taking it from pond to pond to pond? If you're gonna be taking it everywhere you go, I would invest in some landing gear. I know that some of those 14-foot kayaks fully loaded could be around 120 pounds, so think that through as well when you're purchasing a kayak. Next, you probably have to think through whether or not you just want a paddle-powered kayak or a pedal-powered kayak. And to be honest with you, I would not do any more fishing in a paddle-powered kayak. Guys, I was out yesterday doing some spring bass fishing. I got 5 of them. Here's a picture of the biggest one I caught, and it was so windy. I would not have been able to have been out on the water if I had a paddle-powered kayak. So if you like fishing and don't mind a little wind, you're going to want to have a hands-free fishing experience. The way that I see it is that you can't be fishing if your hands are on the paddle. So you're simply increasing your chances of catching more fish. Also, as you look at it, if you plan on modifying it, game out your modifications. Are you putting a fish finder? Are you gonna have a battery? How are you gonna run those lights? Are you capturing film? How are you gonna get that all set up? Are you gonna have the transducer in the hull? Are you gonna have a transducer arm? All things you should be thinking about so you're super happy with your purchase. Next, think through your steering. Obviously, if you have a paddle powered, you're gonna be doing that yourself. But a lot of the higher end fishing kayaks are gonna have steering cables, which you have a little multi-directional handle right off your seat. Those things are really nice. As you can see, one size does not fit all, so it'd be really good for you to think through this list so you're much happier with your investment. All right, if you're tracking with me, getting value, please help me out, hit that like button, and we're gonna move into the final kayak fishing buying mistake. Thinking that kayaks are a much cheaper alternative to boats. Guys and girls, I was blown away when I started pricing out fishing kayaks when I got into this years ago. My polyethylene Native Slayer Propel 10, if you were to buy it new right now, is over $2,000. When you start adding all the fishing gear, the mods, the fish finders, the trailers, some of these bundles on Facebook Marketplace can run between $4,000 and $8,000. Some of your Hobie Pro anglers are $5,000, and that's just the kayak. You could buy a fairly nice bass boat with an engine for that much money. So be prepared for the sticker shock. The reason I got a kayak over a boat, because I didn't want to mess with the engine. I didn't mess with the gas, the oil, with the winterization. I love fishing where no boats are able to go. And to be honest with you, I love kayak fishing because it's a slower way of fishing, and it forces me to fish places that I would never fish otherwise. If you like this video, I got another one for you. 9 kayak fishing mistakes I made and you should avoid right